Well, that would destroy the Japanese yen carry trade that countries from around the globe have been using for arbitrage opportunities. So, what happens now is that the G7 countries stepped in. They boosted the yen so this wouldn't happen. Well, normally, during a global catastrophe, throughout history, the U.S. dollar has been basically the flight for safety type of an investment vehicle. So as other things, 9/11, tsunamis, earthquakes, economic problems all over the globe, what would happen is the U.S. dollar would be the net beneficiary of all that as a flight for safety. But what has happened since the Japanese tsunami and quake? The U.S. dollar has lost 2.5% of its value in 2 weeks. See, the U.S. dollar isn't the bastion of safety that it used to be. This is a huge paradigm shift now globally. For the first time, having major global impact on the U.S. dollar, a major catastrophe is causing the dollar to actually decline, not increase, because a lot of the money that would normally come into the U.S. currency is going into the yen to keep its value up so they don't lose that 0% carry trade. This will affect the rest of the world. This is going to affect you and I. Why? Because all this $40 trillion of yen that have been pumped into the system is going to cause massive amounts of inflation globally. This is very serious. So a collapse means one of two things. It means that the U.S. stock market could collapse because of the inflationary pressures. It means that the U.S. dollar could collapse because of the inflationary pressures. It means that the entire international monetary system could collapse. Well, that's essentially what the globalists want, to be quite honest, is when their poster child of a regionally traded currency, the euro, comes crashing down like it is because Portugal, Italy, Iceland, Spain are all falling apart. In fact, I just read a report today that Ireland's treasury bonds are now paying 10.06%, which is huge because they are afraid that the Ireland economy is about to collapse. Well, see, what's happening in Europe is that people are revolting from the austerity measures. As the governments are now shifting the economic collapse from the big banks, then they shifted it to the bond market. Well, now that the bond market is collapsing, they're shifting it to the taxpayers. See, the same thing is going to happen here in this country. That's amazing. So, if the dollar, will the dollar go down to zero? Eventually it will, but I'm not talking about the dollar completely collapsing in the short term. It's just going to lose a lot of money, but the dollar doesn't need to go to zero for us to have a major impact here. For example, the dollar right now is at about between 75 and 76 on the dollar index. The dollar index is just a comparison of the U.S. dollar compared to other currencies around the globe. So it's at 76. In 2002, the dollar index reached its high at 120. So the dollar has lost about 40% of its value since 2002. This is ridiculous. This is a huge decline. Well, if the dollar gets to 58 on that index, which is just another 20% down from where we are today, basically that's Zimbabwe-style hyperinflation on Main Street America if the index goes from 76 to 58. Jim Sinclair, one of the world's foremost precious metals analysts, made that analysis about 3 years ago, and he said we were on our way there. Well, now we're at 76, we're on our way down there. If we get to 58, people, this is hyperinflation. This means, does the dollar absolutely go away? No, it doesn't go away, but what it does mean is it doesn't have its purchasing power. And just like in Weimar Republic, Germany, and after World War I, when they were forced to pay off all their war debts, they basically had to start printing without discretion. They abandoned the gold standard, started printing to the tune of, they had inflation in the millions of percent. People were being paid in wheelbarrows and suitcases full of cash. They were being mugged when they would leave their place of work. And you know what the muggers would do? They would dump all the currency on the streets and they would take the suitcases and the baskets because it was the only thing that had any value. Now, let's hope and pray that we don't get to that point in this country. However, we're employing the exact same tactics that led Germany to that, which is printing without discretion, debasing our currency. In black swan events like the tsunami and earthquake basically will exacerbate that and accelerate that problem. So let's look at one other thing that's going on here that we've seen in the media lately, and that is what Glenn Beck alluded to in his show 2 or 3 days ago. He talked about the SEIE union boss, or actually former boss, was at a university, made a speech talking about how in May he was trying to incite a revolution. What kind of a revolution? A financial revolution. They wanted to destroy Wall Street. They wanted to destroy the banking system. And he actually laid out on audio, this is ridiculous, a plan for that to happen. The plan is this. And it's actually genius in its application, but very sinister and very dark. And this should scare the living daylights out of you. So, imagine on May 1st, May Day, communist holiday, you've got 2 to 3 million to 4 million unionized employees that go into their bank, Chase Manhattan, Citibank, Bank of America, whatever it may be. And so you realize that these banks only have about 2% of all of the deposited assets on reserves at any given time. Well, what they're going to do, what the proposal is, based on this audio from the university speech that the former head of that janitors union gave, said we are going to go in, we are going to demand that the banks either reduce our interest rate or decrease the amount that we owe on our mortgages because our equity is down. We don't have enough equity and our houses are underwater. If you don't do that, we are going to pull all of our assets from your bank. Okay, if that were 10, 20, even 1,000 people around the country, it wouldn't amount to a hill of beans of difference. But millions of unionized employees acting in concert at once, going in, making those ridiculous demands, and if they don't get them, pulling their assets, that could cause a run on the banks. It could shut down banks all over the country. This is a very, very serious problem that we need to take seriously. Evidently, Glenn Beck sent audio tape of this to the Department of Justice, hasn't heard back. See, this is basically inciting a revolution. This is inciting a civil war, which to me is treasonous. And if the Department of Justice doesn't look at this very seriously, you could have a run on the banks and could topple the financial system in this country for quite some time. This is very sinister, and there's not a lot of information out on it yet. Just this guy's speech, which you can Google on the internet, you can find, or actually maybe John or somebody could actually forward everybody that email, because we all need to know about this. It's in audio. It is serious, and this plus what's happening in Japan, the collapsing of the U.S. dollar, and by collapsing I mean more than just a gradual decline. I mean, like, if you can picture the Roman Colosseum, for example, and year after year after year, those pillars holding up that roof are crumbling, and they're crumbling, and all of a sudden the roof falls in. It looks like an event. That roof collapse looks like an event, but what it is, it was actually an event that was been caused by decades or decades or decades or centuries of erosions of those pillars holding that roof up. See, this is what it's going to look like. The collapse of the U.S. currency is going to be sudden. It is going to look like an event, but it's not. It started in 1913 and has been a gradual process, and we're hitting a point of critical mass where the debt of our country is going to topple us from the inside. Now, it's not good. We are going to destroy ourselves as a country and as a nation and as the freedom that we love, not from an outside factor, but from the inside because of our debt. And this is ridiculous. And so what I wanted to leave you all with is that capitalism is at stake here. Our freedom as a nation is at stake here. We need to do what we need to do to protect ourselves, and there are things that we can do. Precious metals are a great thing to invest in to counterbalance some of the stock market collapses, the bond market collapses, the currency collapses, because as those collapse, the rise in precious metals will increase. We've seen on average since 2002 when that bull market started, gold and silver going up on average over 30% a year like clockwork. Gold was $250 an ounce back in 2002. Now it's $1,400. That is massive growth. Silver was about $4 an ounce. Now it's $37. That is massive growth, over 700% during that time frame. So there are things we can do. I don't want to leave you with gloom and doom and being scared, because if we work together, if we work in concert to help protect our freedom that we have, our economic freedom, our political freedom, our religious freedom are all interconnected. And you know what? We need to do what we need to do to protect our finances, to make sure we have something to rebuild this society with. We need to speak out. We need to stop these crazy union bosses from doing these stupid plans to topple our banking system. That's not American. We should be working together to save things, not working together like some of those union people are to try to destroy us from within. That is ridiculous, and it needs to be stopped. And we can start this by actually protecting our own finances and making our voices heard, holding our congressmen and women's feet to the fire, making sure that they do what we elected them to do, and that is to advance the cause of freedom. That is to advance our way of life, so that we can assure that the next generation is going to be better than the one that we live in. That's basically all that I have for you tonight. I'd be love to answer any questions during the Q&A session.
Thank you, Kirk. I'm assuming everyone can hear me. I've switched computers, but thank you very much for that information, and we will definitely take as many questions as we can towards the end of this. We'd now like to introduce a man who really needs no introduction. We have the founder of Oath Keepers, Yale University law graduate, Stuart Rhodes from Oath Keepers, joining us. Thank you very much, Stuart.
Good to go. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you, Stu. Everything's perfect.
Okay. I just want to add to what Kurt just said, and I've heard about that recording. But here's the problem. The banks are in on it also. A lot of the big international power financial elites are already planning on destroying our banking system intentionally. I mean, you might have seen the video of George Soros that's already flying around YouTube, where he talked, this is I believe a year and a half ago, where he openly advocated a new world order. You know, those are his words, not mine. And he openly talked about the need to get rid of the dollar as a reserve currency and the need to work towards a new global currency. And he's trying to sell it as being good for us. And so, you know, you're already seeing it from their own mouths, or hearing it from their own mouths, what they intend to do. They intend to kill the dollar, and they intend to impose upon us a worldwide version of the Fed. And so I think we just all need to just face reality. This is what they're going to do. And so we have to have an answer to it. And I'll repeat a few things I said last time, but I think they bear repeating, that we have to have an alternate structure, which is basically getting back to constitutional money. We need to do this in the states in particular, and also as individuals. If we don't have our states matter, if you have a bunch of, if you're wealthy, it won't make a difference at all for you. If you have a bunch of silver and gold in your vault somewhere, it's not going to do you any good at all if our economy is destroyed and the people of this country are so destitute and desperate that they accept the mark of the beast, essentially, a worldwide currency and a worldwide system being imposed upon us. And so if we're not strong in our communities and our states, then you will see most Americans will probably take it. They'll go ahead and roll over accepting that because they'll have no alternative. So those of us who are constitutionalists, those of us who are awake, have an incredible burden on us to do all we can in the shortest time possible to resurrect the Founders Republic right now at the individual level, at the local community level, in our counties, in our states. And I would do it in that order. Make sure you're squared away. The hierarchy of needs should be first in our minds. You have to eat. That's the one thing you really can't improvise. Most Americans have plenty of guns. The one thing they don't have is food storage, unless they're LDS or unless they're pretty hardcore survivalist preppers. Most Americans have no idea how to store food or have even thought about it. And so that's the most important thing you can do is make sure you've got food storage. I think Kirk had a really good book on his on his website he was recommending called when Money Dies, right? Correct? Is that what it's called?